Hello.
Hi, I'm Pat. This is an Arc Lash build guide, and it's also where I'm probably going to tell you why Arc Lash is the best worst build in Diablo 4. I think those two topics are inherently tied together. First, let's get everybody up to speed and talk about how the Arc Lash build works. Arc Lash works on two things. Arc Lash itself, which is a basic ability that can lower your cooldowns, as well as stun every 10th time it swipes. It can swipe twice every time it critically strikes, at least when the initial swipe crits. Combo this with the key ability, the Ultimate Unstable Currents, which allows us to cast a random shock skill of the core conjuration or mastery flavor, and you've got a build. All you need now is survivability and a way to just swing that Arc Lash over and over again, of which we have many things, and Season 2 has given us many tools to do this with. That's where all sense and sensibility comes out. Because one of Arc Lash's greatest abilities is to also spam this thing, Ball Lightning. You don't actually have it in your bar, you put that in your enchant slot, and it gives you the ability to lucky hit. Critical strikes have up to a 25% chance to spawn a static lightning ball, or ball lightning rather. That allows you to do a lot of single target damage against static things, of which there will be many because you can stun things pretty much at will. It also scales madly off your attack speed bonus, which already you want a lot because you want to swing that Arc Lash a lot. It is by far the best option to put on your enchantment if you're running an Arc Lash build. But here's the deal, see? Let's pull up everything we can cast with Arc Lash, as well as Unstable Currents. Don't let this distract you from the fact that the build is good, by the way. It's very, very strong, it can go very fast, and it's also very simple. I think you can see the problem already, and it is that their lucky hit chance is absurdly low. 6% for Lightning Spear, 6% for Ball Lightning, 26% for Charged Bolts. For Chain Lightning, it is a respectable 36%, while Arc Lash itself has a base of 14. It's just at 18% because I made the foolish decision to kind of invest into Lucky Hit. Teleport is also on your bar, but it cannot be procced by Unstable Currents. But it does have the highest Lucky Hit potential. I believe the base is around 65. 83% is where it's at because I have Lucky Hit buffs as well. Flame Shield is also on our bar, of course, and it has a Lucky Hit percentage of 45%. For those of you who don't know what Lucky Hit does or how to calculate for how often it can proc, it's very simple. You multiply the Lucky Hit chance of the ability by the Lucky Hit percentage of the Lucky Hit proc. Let's take Teleport as an example. It has currently an 83% Lucky Hit chance. Multiply that by Ball Lightning's enchantment's 25% lucky hit chance, and we get a modestly respectful 20.75% chance to proc the Ball Lightning, which, by the way, it does not spin around if it's spawned by the enchantment effect, just so you know. But yeah, 20.75, it'll happen 1 out of every 5 teleports, or 1 out of every 5 times the teleport hits somebody and crits. Lest we forget, that's the enchantment effect. It has to be a critical hit. Now let's take a look at the bottom end of this. Lightning Spear has a lucky hit chance of 6%. Now 6 times 0.25 or 6 times 25% is a terrible 1.5% chance to proc a Ball Lightning on a Lightning Spear crit. That pretty much is obvious, but what is not obvious is how little lucky hit might actually give you in terms of sheer numbers. Because say, when you get a lucky hit bonus from your gear or from a skill such as Precision Magic, you're not actually getting it added. You are getting it multiplied. Essentially, things with high lucky hit chance inherently will benefit tremendously from Precision Magic and the like, while things with lower base lucky hit chance will not get as much. Because you're getting 6 times 0.15 benefit. Or if you want to get the straight up number, it's 6 times 1.15, which gives you a funny number, haha, 6.9 lucky hit chance. But sure, let's roll that up to 7%, which gives us the incredible difference of 0.25% chance to proc on a critical strike a Ball Lightning. And of course, it would be sensible of you to say that, no, the individual proc chances are not what's important here. You might as well maximize them, but you're really just rolling more dice. You're not rolling loaded dice. You're rolling like 500 dice at a time to try to get the ball lightning to proc. Now there's more math there, more math than I am equipped to fully utilize, but the important part is I want you to understand just how bizarrely rare that ball lightning in theory should be, and yet I can see it semi-regularly. That's how much nonsense this build throws out at every given opportunity. It just wants to spam abilities at people. You are not in charge of this build, not really. You are in charge of directing where it will start spitting out lightning at every possible opportunity. That is also why I do not think personally that it is worth it to invest in Lucky Hit. Even if you can get Arc Lash to like 25% per hit, it is a 6.25% chance to spit out a ball lightning. And another way to look at this might be that Ball Lightning is not actually the preferred enchantment. Unfortunately, we're a little bereft on enchantments that can work out super well for us and still synergize with the rest of the build. If anything, Lightning Spear might be the way to go. Just throw in a few points into anything that generates a crackling energy, and you can start spitting out Lightning Spears, which do terrible damage, but they do buff all of your damage thanks to Conjuration Mastery, which is just an incredible passive overall. It's like Glass Cannon, but without the negative effects. But yes, for the purposes of this build, we are going to be sticking with Ball Lightning, because when it does proc, in that gambling lotto style way that it does, it hurts a lot. It's gonna spit out numbers, and you won't know what's happening until we get that practice dummy in a few days. It's still very much worth it. I'm pretty sure this did not used to be a Lucky Hit ability, which would change my opinion on this drastically, because 25% is 1 in 4, and 5% is 1 in 20. You need to roll a 20 on average to see that ball pop out. The good news is, even without that ball, it's a solid build. It's like winning the lottery. It's also almost basically winning the lottery, but in Diablo. So I disagree with Lucky Hit. So what do we replace it with? Just more opportunities to proc it, which I guess is just casting spells, which means let's focus on the attack speed, as well as the consistency of our ultimate. Fortunately, here comes Flicker's tip to save the day. Each enemy you evade through reduces your active ultimate cooldowns by up to 4 seconds for up to 10 seconds in total per evasion. Tybalt and Metamorphosis rear their ugly heads again to combo with this. So every time you evade, reduce the cooldown of your unstable currents and get up to a 40% increased damage. So now we have a build that is relatively consistent, can proc damage bonuses really easily by doing its job, lower the cooldown of its ultimate so it has, as little downtime as possible, and it can stun people because of Arc Lash and Lightning Spear. A lot of builds do not like putting any points in Lightning Spear, electing to put them all in our defensive abilities so that their cooldowns would be a bit lower, easing the load off our other abilities and allowing us to use them more efficiently. But I liked the Lightning Spear third node, which reads, Lightning Spear stuns enemies for 2.15 seconds when critically striking. It does not have a Lucky Hit attached to it. It just stuns things, and I'm very, very happy about it. You know why? Because sometimes you pull more than you want to in a high-level Nightmare dungeon, and if Lightning Spear did it, which you're going to be casting thanks to Unstable Currents, whether you want to or not, it will at least have a shot at stunning them and keeping them from ruining your party. As an added bonus, these two synergize very well with the good old Godslayer Crown. When you stun, freeze, or immobilize an elite enemy or damage a boss, it pulls in nearby enemies. You deal increased damage to them up to 60% on a maximum roll for 3 seconds. This effect can only occur once every 12 seconds, which is totally fine. Yeah, both those uniques, by the way, are reachable on Uber Duriel. So, best of luck with that. And by best of luck, I mean you're probably going to have an easy time. He's very beatable at 90 or even 85 or even 80 if you got a fantastic build going and great rolls. The build is also defensively sound. We've got Teleport, Flame Shield, and Ice Armor, 3 defensive abilities on our bar. Teleport, by the way, pulling triple duty as an unstoppable proc, a Lucky Hit chance proc, as well as an escape. Ice Armor feeding off the damage that you deal by increasing your barrier. And Flame Shield just keeping you alive for fun. I'm pretty sure Immune does not count as unstoppable, although it does make you unstoppable. So it might proc Tybalts, although I don't think it matters all too much if you proc tie bolts with it, because you're always going to have your dodge thanks to Flickerstep's ability to reduce your evade every time you attack. And much like Dear Rat Boy, we cannot forget about Frost Nova, which lowers this cooldown when you kill people frozen by it, and it makes people vulnerable for 4 seconds, 6 seconds against bosses. So what are the cons of the build? It really likes unstable currents being online. Like, it doesn't do anything when unstable currents is offline. It is just sitting there whacking away with a basic ability because we got no spender on our bar. But thanks to the power of vampirism in Season 2, we have those problems solved. Along with Flickerstep comes Moonrise, Anticipation, Hectic, and Ravenous. Moonrise increases our attack speed every time we hit with a basic attack. Once we hit max stats, we gain 120% basic skill damage and extra movement speed. Extra movement speed seems silly until we look at Ravenous. Lucky Hit, up to a 20% chance to increase your attack speed by 30% of your total move speed for 6 seconds. It is helpful enough to give us the total benefit it gives, which for me is currently 42.6%. And then there's Hectic. For every 5 basic skills you cast, one of your active cooldowns is reduced by 1.5 seconds, up to 2 seconds really, when you level it up to 3. Chooses a random one, so I'm almost certain there is a build out there that is just Flame Shield on its bar and Hectic trying desperately to keep you alive. I mean, you're not gonna kill anything, but it's gonna be there. And Anticipation, our 5th power, just gives our ultimate a straight up 20% cooldown reduction. So it is defensively sound, offensively sound, and it has a way to basically keep unstable currents completely online at almost all the time. I just don't like that it's mathematically unsound, and I don't like math. I don't hate math, but I don't, love it. I'm not like, spreadsheets. No, that's not my jam, although I know the importance of spreadsheets. It's just that on paper, it doesn't seem to work, and yet it does. I also just don't like that there are no legendary Paragon nodes that actually help the build out in most cases. The closest would be the Crackling Energy one, but we don't even use the Crackling Energy node on our ultimate. Okay, so that's like the intro to the build, and I know that's a bit longer than we're used to. Usually it's like 3 to 6 minutes, like la la la. Check out the build in the description below, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell if you go away right now, which I guess this is the part of the video where I say that. Build is in the description below, and before you go, if you decide to check that out immediately, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell because it'll help me out a lot. It's a bit rambly, so I'm now going to discuss the aspects and items and all the rest to people who don't know what the Lash build is all about. Okay, if you're still here, you're new to the Lash build and perhaps Diablo in general, but I'm not going to discuss these too in-depth because they are fairly simple. Like the Godslayer crown, which you can get from Uber Duriel or a random drop. It doesn't have the best rolls ever for defense. You do get maximum life, but you do get a cooldown reduction guaranteed on it, as well as a damage bonus and a crowd control duration bonus, which is honestly probably largely negligible. And the most important thing is its unique ability to pull things to a target you stun, freeze, or immobilize if it's an elite, or if you just hurt a boss, it just pulls things in. The up to 60% increased damage dealt to them for 30 seconds is also very nice. But the effect can only occur once every 12 seconds is totally fine. For our chest plate, we have the Aspect of Might, which gives us a 20% damage reduction whenever you use a basic skill. For mods on the armor itself, you're going to want something a bit more defensive than what I managed to get. Damage reduction is king. Even though resistances do now matter, you still want a damage reduction on your armor. Especially since 3 out of our 5 armor pieces are uniques, with not the best rolls for defending yourself. For our gloves, we're running with the Storm Swell aspect, which reads you deal up to 30% increased damage to vulnerable enemies while you have a barrier. Now that sounds like a lot of things to trigger it, but making things vulnerable is as easy as casting our Frost Nova. And barrier, man, every time we use one of our abilities with a cooldown, we get a barrier, so we're almost always going to have a barrier. If we don't have a barrier, something terrible went wrong. The last 2 armor pieces are uniques, which I think all 3 of them you need to get from Uber Durel, so sorry, but it's aspirational and stuff. Bolt's Will gives us a damage increase while unstoppable and for 4 seconds after, which we can achieve with Teleport, probably Flame Shield, and definitely our Evade with Metamorphosis. As an added bonus, when you become unstoppable, you gain 50 of your primary resource, but we don't really have a use for our primary resource. Liquor Step is the best thing ever printed, I think. Attacks reduce Evade's cooldown by 1.2 seconds, as its implicit ability is fantastic because it synergizes with itself. The more you attack, the more often you can evade and trigger Tybalt's Will. And for the pièce de résistance, its unique ability is each enemy you evade through reduces your active ultimate cooldown by 4 seconds, or up to 4 seconds, and up to 10 seconds total per evade, which really helps keep that unstable currents on. Now for our weapons. Since I gave up on Lucky Hit, although I will not judge you if you do want to go on that Lucky Hit spree, I did not go that way. I went with a Dagger, which increases damage to close enemies as its implicit ability. We're of course running the Rapid aspect, which increases the attack speed of our basic skills up to 30%. For my offhand, we are using the aspect of the gravitational aspect. That's what I want to say. It also has the implicit 10% cooldown reduction, which is fantastic. The aspect itself forces Ball Lightning to revolve around us and increase its damage by 25%. Do note that Ball Lightnings created by the enchantment slot do not revolve around you, they stay in place, which is great for hurting a boss. For our bling bling things, our amulet and rings, we've got the aspect of disobedience on our amulet. We gain increased armor for 4 seconds when we deal any form of damage, stacking up to 99% when it's on an amulet. If you have, 6,300 armor at least, fully stacking up the disobedience will get you up to like 12k armor, which I believe is the target amount of armor to gain the max value of damage reduction from physical attacks when you are at Nightmare tier 100. So that's perfect. The things in our rings are here to hurt things. We've got the aspect of control and the aspect of conceited, or the conceited aspect. I can never say that one right. One gives you increased damage while you have a barrier active, which I have mentioned will be all the time. And aspect of control lets us deal more damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen enemies, which is also pretty much all the time. Okay, that was the simple part. For the skills, I'm not going to discuss each one individually. I say that every time, but I do end up. But this one, I definitely won't. For the complete thing, click on the link in the description below. Here, I'm going to discuss primarily what makes the build tick, as well as anything that might look strange to people. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below, and I will get back to you after I get over my anxiety. We have exactly 1 point in Firebolt, and it's only for its enchantment effect. As a sorcerer, you can get 2 enchantment effects, one of which is our Ball Lightning, the other will be this thing, for one reason: it sets things on fire. The burning damage is meh, although it does help build your disobedience stacks. But it does allow us to access certain things on our Paragon bar, such as extra damage on burning things and reduced damage from burning things. Charged bolts also have a few points in them, even though they are not on our bar. We have 1 point at base, 1 point in the seconding, and 1 point into the mod that reduces damage of things damaged by charged bolts. It is a purely defensive tool for us. Speaking of strange things for your skills, it's ice armor. You only need 1 point in it, really. You might not even spend that point. It is recommended that you have a +2 all defensive abilities mod on your amulet, which means you can cast this one basically for free without the cost of a skill point. There is absolutely no need to spend into its development lane, nor to increase its value, because increasing the value of ice armor does not actually improve it in a meaningful manner. All it does is increase the starting amount of barrier that you get, but that barrier is going to get buffed by the damage dealt. 5% of your damage dealt is added to its barrier. That extra point I would usually, well, actually that's going to reflect in the link in the description below, but I would put that in one of your other defensive abilities, like Teleport, Flame Shield, or Frost Nova, because it either reduces its cooldown or increases its efficacy. Yes, I know, ice armor is a very strange skill. It is still an important skill, however. Now I keep talking about how we always have our barrier up, and it's because of protection. Using a cooldown grants 30% of your maximum life. Maximum life is very important here, as a barrier for 30 seconds. So basically, whenever we do anything that isn't Arc Lash, we get a barrier. Now, I have points in Lightning Spear, just enough to get to the second node, which is Lightning Spear stuns enemies for 2.15 seconds while critically striking. For me, it's all about control. Eventually, you'll reach a point where things can basically one-shot you, or at most, maybe two-shot you, especially if you're pushing. And I always find that things that are stunned don't hurt as much unless they have ground explosions, which, by the way, I hate, because there's so much stuff on the screen, up to and including numbers and lightning effects, that sometimes you just cannot see the things on the ground. Conjuration Mastery, by the way, is apparently a big deal because you deal 3% increased damage for each active conjuration. Great! But when you go nuts with your unstable currents, you start spamming out lightning spears, which conjuration. If you would not be surprised if you see like 4 of them on screen at any given time. So you get what, 12%? Yeah, that's how math works. That's also why on your amulet you probably want a +2 Conjuration Mastery mod on it, because that's gonna jack up your damage all at the cost of just doing your thing and swinging that Arc Lash. And because Flicker Step is so efficient, we are free to take Veer's Mastery. Close enemies take 15% increased damage from your shock skills and deal 20% less damage to you. Fantastic. Critical strikes increase these bonuses by 25% for 3 seconds. Now, if we knew our math, we'd know that that's not actually great, but we'll take any bonus we can get. Okay, time for Vampiric Powers. First of all, Moonrise is great because it increases your attack speed and movement speed, which, as we have mentioned, synergizes very well with Ravenous, which has the ability to increase your attack speed by 30% or 40% at max rank of your movement speed. Keep in mind that it is total movement speed, not movement speed bonus. So even if you do not have any movement speed mods on you, it's still going to give you value. Although you really want movement speed on your amulet. Hectic completes the trifecta. For every 5 basic skills you cast, one of your active cooldowns is reduced. Admittedly, I find Hectic rather unpredictable and not that reliable, although I like having it on the bar. You might instead want to do the one that heals you every time you swing, or cast a spell rather, which is gonna keep you alive. You might even consider the Fortify one. Our other Vampiric Powers are Anticipation, which has no greater purpose in life but to reduce the cooldown of our ultimate skill, Unstable Currents, and Metamorphosis. Now for Paragon notes, and I have mentioned previously that one of my greatest complaints about the build is that it feels like we're not really meant to be playing this build. It's just that people like the build, and it would look bad if Blizzard deleted the build from existence, because none of the legendary nodes really support it in a way that matters, or at least in a way that fully supports what the build is trying to do, which is keep Unstable Currents on and keep swinging that Arc Lash. This is especially notable as the Ice Spikes build did get a Paragon node just for it. Anyway, Paragon Glyphs. May surprise you to know that many of our Paragon Glyphs are either damage reduction or increasing our damage, such as Control and Destruction. Destruction increases damage whenever we crit on somebody, and Control makes people who are stunned or frozen really hurt from us. That's not how that's said. Really take damage from us. I'll take it. You know what? I'm too tired. Flame Feeder, on the other hand, takes advantage of things that are on fire, which is why we have Firebolt on our enchantment bar. Now for our 2 defensive nodes and a third one. Territorial and Reinforced are defensive. One tells you to take less damage from close enemies, and the other one gives you a 50% damage reduction while you have an active barrier. So that's 30% total against things that are near you and 15% against everything else, because unless I missed a patch note, damage reduction you just add and it counts. Adept makes our balls bigger. Our ball lightning, that is. Okay, that's it. Trying to do something a bit different here, especially with the opening rant, I think it went well. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to discuss every single thing, but I do not feel like there is value in it. But if you personally find value in it, let me know and I'll switch things up again. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, do all those nice things and more. It would help me and the channel out a lot, especially the sharing part. I am Patinator. I will see you later.